Okay, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Accommodation Show. Wil Slickers is on the Accommodation Show. Hello, and welcome.
Good to see you, Bart. Thank you. Thanks for having me. Long time no see.
Good to see you. It has been a little while. Did I even see you at VRMA this year?
No, I've missed a couple VRMAs this year. Or not this year, but the last couple of years. So.
No, but I saw you at the one in Phoenix, and that was 2 years ago.
Oh, okay. Well, then all my years are blurring. So, yes. So we saw each other in Phoenix would be the last one.
You're a busy man. You're a man of a lot of value. And that's why I wanted to get you on the show today, because you have the most broad, or one of the most broad perspectives of the industry because of all the people that you talk to within the short-term rental space. And now beyond that, within hotels and travel and leisure and that sort of thing. And I thought it'd be valuable for people to hear a bit about your journey, what you've been up to over the past few years, but also how significant it is to join a larger organization being Skift. And what I would like to also understand from you today, and I think what people should really understand, is where Skift fits into the ecosystem and whether they should be following Skift, reading their stuff, going to their conferences, and how that's going to impact their short-term rental businesses, but also hotel businesses as a whole. Because, Wil, when we were just talking before, you started off as the hotel guy, and then you became the STR guy, and now you're the travel and media guy. But I feel like you've been the travel and media guy for a little bit, so it's a little bit disingenuous. But you've kind of done, I can't say you've done it all. You're way too young for that. But do you feel that way a bit?
A little bit, yeah. I've lived many lives, is what I like to say. Had to grow up pretty early, but kind of with my career in the industry of hospitality, I'll say, it really just started with the front desk position where I had a couple nice suits in my closet. I wanted to put them to good use after I started a chauffeur and event company that didn't end up panning out really well at all. Yeah. So that was kind of the start. And then at this hotel, it was a 4-diamond, AAA diamond hotel, resort, convention hotel, 700 plus rooms. So I was checking in at some points like 600, 700 people a day with a team of 2 or 3 other agents, and fell in love with it, to be honest. Like, you had your repeat business. So Mrs. Malone, Mr. Wall, the Chardine couple, like, it was always great to see my people. And I realized, like, okay, I love this, like whatever this is, and the business of it and the world of it. Eventually to management and a different property out in the Oregon coast. But that was the time I started the podcast, where I used the podcast that I started called Slick Talk to really interview people on things I was interested in to better my career. So it wasn't like a go full-time podcast mode. Yeah, it was like, I'm going to be a hotel executive and I'm going to learn from the best. And there's people out there that I'm not great at school, so I can learn from them. Which then turned into the media guy, and also short-term rentals. I got exposed to that. I think, trying to remember what company it was, but I think it was Noise Aware or one of the other short-term rental vendors put a blog out of like the top 10 short-term rental podcasts. And I mentioned Stay Alfred on one episode. They're no longer in business, but like that got me on the top 10 list. And I looked at the short-term rental world and I was like, oh, this is interesting. And then started a short-term rental company, and the list goes on. So lots of things, but lived many, many lives in the last 8 years.
I was talking to someone the other day and they talked about focus. And when you're focusing is when you get another project or another idea that you'd be really super excited about and you really want to do it, right? But you say no to it. I'm going to focus on that one particular mission or goal. And that's when you know that you're really focusing on something. It's at the expense of something that normally you'd just be like, oh, this is the best thing ever. I'm going to go for it. Do you think, because I feel that you've been quite focused on the media side of things. And I remember, 4 years ago, maybe 4 years ago, talking to you, like, I run a media company now.
Yeah. Yeah, I say focus is really important, but I also say I had zero focus of starting the media company with all focus of becoming a hotel executive. And so I think allowing the momentum and allowing the traction that you're getting in certain areas to carry you, and Gary V, one of my favorite kind of like, business people, motivational people, etc., always says like there's power in changing your mind, right? Like you can change your mind on new information. If I'm going in to start this podcast to learn to better my hotel career, my hotel management career, but it ends up giving me the best outcome of starting a media business rather than being a hotel executive. Is that wrong? Is that bad? Like, do I need to be focused and say no to this opportunity of somewhere I'm having fun? It wasn't easy, but it definitely, the steps laid out before me, right? Like when I went to look for new guests or when I looked for sponsorship, it happened. It wasn't like fighting tooth and nail. So when you have truth and some traction in something, I think it's good to follow that. Whether you were focused on object A versus object B, you just shift your focus a little bit. So, yeah, I would say focus is great, but be open to go where you're pulled.
Yeah. And I think that's your journey, right? Is that
Mhm.
you, because you have been through different things, but it's good because you stayed within the same
For
niche,
sure. Yeah. Yeah.
right? So you're like, all right, cool. I love travel. I love hotels. And I bet you I'm going to put my mark in the sand. I reckon you're going to get into all the restaurant stuff in no time at all. Because then you find out that not only do you get to interview people and talk to them, but you get to eat some pretty good food along the way, which is something that I really love. Interesting enough. So I want to make sure this episode has got good value for people. Like, oh,
Mhm.
cool. What can I learn from this? And one of the things I wanted to encourage people to think about is where they're getting their content from and what's really relevant now. Because you started your podcast quite a number of years ago. We've got this one. There's a whole array of different resources out
Yeah.
there. And I think that your progression has been quite extraordinary from doing your own podcast to then really understanding that you could get people that are incredibly knowledgeable to do their own podcasts and create content within your network or empire, as you may want to call it, and then
Mhm.
the move to Skift, right, and kind of moving all of those assets or programming across. Now, when we think about the move to Skift, can you, first of all, I think most people know Skift, but actually, I'd also argue that Skift is probably better known within tourism as a whole or hotels as a whole, but within the short-term rental side, I think that not everybody knows exactly what's going on there. Can you give us a bit of a context?
Yeah. So for those who don't know, Skift is I would call the biggest B2B travel media company out there. I've been reading them since I was a front desk agent. So 2014, 2015, like early days. More editorial focus. So it's journalistic led, right? We have journalists and editors that cover stories, breaking news, inside scoops, you name it. But we also have a research team and a research business with live events and many other things. So it's not only just like stories and articles, it's research, it's numbers, it's data, and it's in-person experiences where, our global forum is where we get the biggest names of every sector of the industry on stage, from airlines to hotels to short-term rentals to technology to tourism to content creators now we're looking at for 2026. And so, CEOs of Marriott, CEO of Airbnb, right? Brian Chesky himself on stage. So it's, for those that don't know, it is the bigger pie of media rather than just the short-term rental sector. The short-term rental sector is a smaller, surprise, like believe it or not, smaller category for Skift. So there's not always a ton of coverage, but I'm always pushing internally for more. As I got to cover my own story last week on February 13th around Costco. So, there's going to be more short-term rental content, but when you have more publicly traded businesses in other sectors, those are usually something that take a lot of the limelight.
Yeah, and I think as well is that within the hotel sector, there's such a massive amount of consolidation.
Yeah.
A lot more listings on stock markets and that sort of stuff, a lot more institutional funds going into it, and better backed as well by the banks and that sort of thing. So you can
Yeah.
get debt financing without a problem. Whereas short-term rentals are still not really understood, and it's a really complicated business, and probably got a lot more risk as well than get a hotel, fill rooms, and that sort of thing. So it's just a segment that's growing. But also, if you were to think about travel, right, or experiences, so experiences is very, very important, but also it's a victim of the same thing, right? So if you go on a
Yeah.
cruise line and it's an experience, it's fine. But now if we're going a bit more granular, like hot air balloons and stuff like that, it's like, well, you're not going to do anything. There can be a lot of money being driven by it, but it's not the same thing. I really want to. There's something that you said to me. Wow, I don't know. It's all in the past now
Yeah.
because Will and I are friends from back in the COVID days, and we were kind of budding at the start of what we were up to. And one of the things that you had started doing was going to the conferences. And one of the things that you'd said to me was something like, "You, if you want to be in the game, you've got to get to the conferences. You've really
Yeah.
got to get to them and get in front of people." Now, I want to ask you about this because one, do you still believe that, and why? But there's a two-part question: is your being in the game has changed because you were going to one set of groups or conferences, and now you're at the biggest in the world, which is probably the gold standard or the epitome of where you could possibly be whilst being in the game. Now, how relevant is it for, let's call it a short-term rental person right now that's listening, going, okay, well, should I go to Skift next? Do I want to be in the game? Tell me about that progression and tell me about maybe a bit about that conversation and how you could advise people on their journey to better themselves in their business.
Yeah, for sure. The answer to the first part of the question is definitely yes. Be in the game, be in the room, do what you can to do. And I love what you did, right? Like if you live in Australia and you're across the world, and a lot of the conferences are in the US or maybe somewhere in Europe, you create your own, right? Like create your own room. I love that, and I think that approach is still applicable to anyone today. But being in the room, like this business is built off of relationships. We all met off of what was that app that was audio only in COVID?
Oh my God.
I'm forgetting. Yeah, I'm forgetting the app, but whatever, we all met online. We've all met on LinkedIn. We've all met on Instagram. But being in person and solidifying that relationship, that friendship, that business relationship in person is still crucial. And it's going to become more and more crucial today, to be honest, as everyone is writing AI posts and AI junk, media. It's going to become, the in-person effect is really going to make or break, I think, a lot of things in the future moving forward. But for your second part of the question, I still think it's applicable. Skift isn't just hotels or just airlines or just this, but we try to create things, and I say we as I've been doing it forever, but I've only been there 7 months. So forgive me for anyone at Skift listening, but we've tried to create things that aren't just for the hoteliers or just for the airline folk or just for short-term rentals. Yes, we do have separate category type content for that. But everyone right now is talking about data and AI, and we have a data and AI summit. So whether you're in short-term rentals, restaurants, flights, cruises, it doesn't matter. It applies to you. It's something that we are discovering or discussing that's happening in travel today. So stuff like that, yeah, 100% attend. But if you're like, oh, the Skift aviation forum doesn't sound like it's for me, then yeah, it's not for you. Don't go if you're not in the aviation world. But yeah, I think being in the room is always important. And when you go to a stage like Skift stage, it's a different type of clientele. It's a different type of audience member. It's a different type of, we have a programming team and we have VIPs and all these things, right? So it's not like, I would say short-term rental conferences sometimes where it can be your peers on stage, right? Like these are executive CEOs. So it's a little bit different. It's a little bit more quote unquote professional, but it's still great quality of content. And definitely, I would say even less competition in the room if you're looking to network and other things like that versus going to a convention, which is like VRMA, where there's going to be anybody and everybody at that conference or that event.
Yeah. The app was called Clubhouse. I did
Clubhouse, yes, Clubhouse. Is that bad? Is that bad that we forgot? Oh, I forgot. Yeah.
It's mental, right? That you just forget something which is such a big part of our lives at the time. And quite actually a very important part, I would argue, that there's a lot of friendships and connections that were made through that time that have endured a long time. And it's nice because we've seen people go in different parts of their journeys, but still hang around and be here.
The Clubhouse era went like 3 or 4 years, I think, afterward. Like those relationships and collaborations went out, for a while.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. The question, I'm going to go back to the question for a sec though, because and I don't want to pick on it, but I was speaking to someone locally and they told me about the Skift conference. They're like, "Bart, it's amazing. I'm going to it. you should get to it. And I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, that sounds great. And then they're like, but be careful, tickets are super expensive. I was like, oh.
Mm.
And I'm not here to try to sell the conference.
Yeah.
What I'm trying to do is try to understand the back side of it, or the back end of it, is like, who should I go there, and what would it kind of elevate me? And that's one thing that I found, is that these conferences, the first VRMA that I went to, was probably half of it was probably down to you telling me to get my ass over there, and that's when we ended up partying in Vegas in the room from The Hangover.
Yep.
And so what happened for me was a psychological shift.
Mm-hmm.
And what it was is this, was I walked into the room and I could see everybody doing their stuff, and they were so far ahead of me as a business in terms of revenue and that sort of thing. But in terms of capability, I didn't feel that anyone was that advanced or as ever than me. And I just thought, well, I could do this as well. And I think that if you're a small business owner, quite often you can be a victim of your own world, right? You've built the business to, it's a certain size, it is what it is. And to get those inflection points to go, hold on a second, what's the difference between me and the next business? And quite often it's you holding yourself back. So that can help a lot. So that's what happened for me at VRMA. Do you think that if I went to Skift, that I would grow another level? Very loaded.
Well, it's very loaded question. But I'll say, if you're going to a conference or an event to elevate you, with the expectation that it's going to elevate you, I would say you're going in with the wrong mindset. The conference itself should not elevate you, but like you said, being in the room, seeing everyone do their thing, right? I had that same experience when I went to my first VRMA in 2021. I think it was Texas. It was I forget whatever one it was, but it was in Texas, and it's the same thing, right? Like, you're just a bunch of people in the same industry who you've gotten to know over time, doing the same thing, building, trying to learn, trying to get better, trying to see how they can help each other out. Because if they help you, you can help me, and vice versa. Right? Like the co-opetition is as Dave from Rent Responsibly says, co-opetition. Yes, we're in competition, and maybe as property managers or as vendors, but the end of the day, the more we work together, the better it is. And so that same approach, I would say, for this, like, if you're worried about the cost of the ticket, then do the live stream instead. Like, you're still going to get the same amount of content. It's up to you to use that content and to get the takeaways and to do that. So don't go to the event to expect it to elevate you. But if you go there with a good mindset, you can be elevated yourself by networking, putting yourself out there, introducing yourself, making yourself a little uncomfortable. Then, of course, absorbing as much as you can. I always suggest, I used to go to these conferences. As you said, we would be partying at the Hangover Suite or doing whatever. Go to these conferences, stay somewhat sober, right? Like, absorb mentally what you could take in, because there's so much on stage. It's hard, and when you're fighting a hangover on top of lack of sleep and diet and all the things and travel, you kind of lose some value with that.
Yeah, but I didn't drink much. When I was there the first few times, and I don't.
Yeah.
Like, I will drink, but sort of, I'm there for work. There for work. Yeah. This is I've invested so much time, effort, and money to get over, time away from the business and everything. I want to get the most out of my conversations with people and out of the event itself.
Exactly.
Generally, all the partying and stuff, which is kind of counterintuitive because if people go there to party, but I find that generally it's the salespeople that are out there partying, like the property managers as well. Actually, the people operating, I think that a lot of them are quite reasonable, and they just don't want to get absolutely smashed because they need this information and they need to grow, and they've got they're so time poor anyway. I'm gonna go on.
I was gonna say, I get it too. If you're like, a lot of the people at VRMA work their asses off, and excuse me if I'm not allowed to swear, but they work their asses off. So of course, to meet your coworkers and have some drinks and have some good times, go for it. Same thing with, Skift events. I know a lot of people still drink, and like, get as much out of it as you can. But as you said, if you're trying to get as much out of it as you can from the people there and the content on stage, other people are there doing the same thing. So you have a lot to give as well. So I think just going in clear-minded and clear set on goals, it'll benefit you, everyone around you that you meet. And not every connection is going to be a silver spoon or a gold spoon. But at the end of the day, if you can have that one network, that one connection, that one takeaway, it
Yeah.
always is always worth it.
Absolutely, you find your tribe as well.
Mm,
I find that for me, it's more of a psychological thing.
yeah,
I kind of sometimes I lament going so
for sure.
far on the plane, and I'm like, oh, here we go again. I've done
Yeah.
this already. This is year 4 or 5 or whatever it is. But then I get there and then do what I do, and
Hmm.
then afterwards I'm like, oh yeah, thank God I went because it's just kept me up to date with everything. I've
Yeah.
seen all the people that I want to see, made some new connections as well, which is really great along the way. Now, I really want to rewind to a different stage of what you've been doing, and I want you to try to give people the best advice that you can around consuming content.
Mm,
Now, you are a content creator, you run the media company, you're leveraged into quite a few different networks across the world. The amount of content that's available is extraordinary. And I would even suggest to say that a lot of the content that we're producing, it's relevant because it's right now and in the moment. But a lot of the things that people might have questions for can be answered very, very simply just using an AI tool, right? You
hmm.
know, how do I grow my STR business? Jump onto ChatGPT. It's probably going to give you 20 ideas in 4 seconds, where listening to a podcast is going to take you an hour. So even but it's not real people, right? Which
Yeah.
is kind of a bit of a leverage point that we have, people actually doing it. Obviously, the way that the podcasts are put together has changed a fair bit. But if you were talking to somebody right now and you said, "Hey," and they were asking you for the best places to get content, especially that you've got so many different channels or podcasts under your wings, what how do they research it? How do they figure out where they should go, and how do they broaden their horizons so that they are not restricted to just one voice?
Such a good question. I was gonna say, if you want my real opinion on on consuming content, you may find it a little extreme, but for the industry, for people getting in the industry consuming content, I would say honestly, it's kind of how you look at travel, right? Like if you're looking at a restaurant to eat, or if you're looking at a place to stay, whether it's a hotel or short-term rental, I know everyone looks at reviews, right? I go on Google Maps before I find any place to eat. I look at a 4.7 review or better. That's the average star I'm looking for. So look at podcasts on Apple Podcasts and look at the reviews. You know, do they have a 4.5 or 4.9 out of 5? You know, obviously reviews are always a key factor, but reviews can tell you a lot with content on platforms that allow reviews. Also, look at voices that are amplifying voices. Look at, like, it's good to have your own show and to be on your own and to be solo and to, you know, especially if you're an expert or a pro in a certain category, whether it's marketing or, you know, you name it, right? The technology part, like you can find a lot of experts. But when you find voices that are collaborative with other voices like you, or I always love Mike Sjogren and the people he brings onto his pod, or I've always loved, I was going to say Sarah Dandishi, but she's with us. So like, you know, all these people that, that share their voice with others and let others, you know, that collaborate and create content as well, because there's a lot to be learned from that ecosystem that they create of people. And so I think those that have an ecosystem of other content creators that they're friends with and are putting out certain things or courses or podcasts or social series, those people are usually kind of the good, what's the phrase, you know, jack of all trades type scenario. They may not be an expert in one category, but they're going to be able to point you to someone who is. And that for me has always been like the most valuable. It's like, if I can find someone who just knows someone, then you're on like a way better path than just being like, all right, ChatGPT, who are the top voices in short-term rentals? And then, you know, yeah, I'll pull up a list, but how accurate is that list? How much does it know about the experts itself? What does it say that the industry doesn't say, right? Like there's a lot of voices that look great and act great, but then you get to meet in private, maybe they're not great. So, you know, there's just a lot of that, right? And so,
Right?
yeah, no, not naming any names, but yeah, just look at the voices and the ecosystem they create around themselves.
Are we looking local or are we looking global? Because there's also a bit of that, right? So our podcast spans 40% of our audience is US, 40% of our audience is here, and that's done by
Mm.
design. Because
Mhm.
what we're trying to do is trying to connect those two bridges between each market, and so we can see each other
Yeah.
basically. I see you, you see me, we share and we collaborate, and that's been one of my goals for quite a number of years. At the exclusion of Europe, unfortunately, because Europe is a different time zone.
Mm.
But what it means is that we can be quite relevant to our markets in terms of the content we create and having thinking about those audiences. But then there's also the global perspective, which is useful. You
Yeah.
know, like you're getting information from everyone and everywhere. When we're following a podcast, should we think about where the person's located?
I think, yeah, but also there's nothing wrong with the global perspective and there's nothing wrong with the local perspective because a local market can also have a lot of similarities with another local market, your local market. I'm in Denver, someone in, I don't know, Big Sky, Montana could have a similar situation and setup as me, but we're not anywhere close and within the same business or infrastructure in the city. So I think it's always good. I wish there was more local podcasts. I wish there was more localized content because I think those actually have it's the good old saying, it's about quality over quantity. And I think a quality of an audience rather than the quantity of an audience can actually make you more successful as a content creator. I know I always like to use the analogy stained glass windows, right? They're beautiful on the outside. You're driving by an old historic church. You see the stained glass window with the art and the picture, and it's beautiful. But if you look at one of those pieces of glass really closely, magnified in, zoomed in, it's ugly, it's broken, it's hazy, it's fuzzy. You can't see it. So like sometimes the local perspective can be a little small and like, you're like, where's the beauty in this? Like what nugget or knowledge am I going to get from this person in, you know, middle of nowhere? But then you step back and you see the 30,000 foot view. It's a beautiful picture. Kind of the same thing with content. I like to say, I wish there was more small pieces of glass rather than people that just go global. So global's great. Micro is great. All is
Amazing.
good. Yeah.
Cool. We're smashing through this very, very quickly. Really interesting. And what I encourage people to do is to follow your journey and what you're up to because you've got access to so much. And your comment, what you just said before, it's all about people that you know. And Will's a good person to know. And I know that he's someone you could just flick a message to on LinkedIn, and he'll probably respond and be open to trying to help and assist you to get to where you want in your journey, and someone useful to have on your radar. You've had a really impressive trajectory. What would you say is the number one thing that's that's made all the difference to get you to where you are today?
Right time, right place, right people would be one of them. I would say the next piece is that nothing's overnight. It's been 8 years. It looks overnight if you condense all the things that have happened into a bio or maybe a LinkedIn post. But 8 years of kind of not knowing what I was doing, just letting things happen, trying to make things happen when they shouldn't, making tons of mistakes along the way. So I think it's, go in with kind of no expectation, if that makes sense. You'll be less disappointed if it doesn't work, but you'll also be thrilled if it works beyond what you may have expected. So that's kind of my two pieces of advice because it wasn't, I won't say it was easy, and it wasn't something like at the end before the acquisition closed in the end of July.
Good. Any final thoughts that you'd like to share with people that might help them out in their journeys with whatever business they're building, maybe within the context of some of the work that you're doing?
I'll just say kind of the broader thing I'm looking at, right? There's a lot of AI slop out there. I'll just say it. There's a ton of AI posts on LinkedIn, AI pictures on Instagram, and now AI videos. I think we're all overwhelmed with the amount of crap out there, with also the amount of just consumption, right? You're consuming reels, TikToks, shorts, posts, blogs, podcasts, vlogs, all the things. Don't underestimate the in-person piece now. The barrier of entry is getting lower and lower for people to create content with AI and all these things.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that just makes it just makes the in-person experience that much better, that more sought after, that more unique and different, because we're all seeking something different than what we're seeing today. So I say that with kind of what we're talking about. Go to the event, host your own happy hour, go get that coffee with someone who's in town that messaged you on LinkedIn. Do the in-person things. It will give you a whole lot of new life outside of what you're seeing on your screens.
Yeah. Yeah, couldn't agree more. Put the phones down. Stop listening to us as well,
Yeah.
right? I think that's going to be a big one. And the AI stop thing is very interesting, and what's something that I'm very aware of, and something that we're victims of as well. I'm sure if we went back and we looked at our own emails and we go, oh no, like it's
Yeah.
terrible. And it is for speed and efficiency that we get caught up in it. So
Yeah.
will be interesting to see how that, especially I think you're much more danger of with your product to these tools, because one, from speed of generating content, how the industry changes, whether Google is going to send traffic your way, or it just all sits in behind the AI. Anyway, much bigger topic. Mr. Will, thank you so much for coming on, having just a chat, really. I think that's what it is. During the interview, you said you just wanted to interview the people that you want to learn from, and I wanted to learn from you and just hear about your journey and just kind of check in with you more than anything else. And I think that that's really valuable for everyone else to see your journey, see what you're doing. If people want to kind of like get the current state of the stuff that you're involved in, where would they go?
Yeah, I would say LinkedIn's probably the better place. I post on my Instagram as well a little bit on like stories, but that's more personal. So yeah, LinkedIn. And you said a little bit earlier, like it would be good to reach out on LinkedIn. I promise I'm getting better at responding to people on LinkedIn. It has not been my best quality recently, but if you have my number or my email, most likely I'll respond faster than LinkedIn. I promise I'm not ignoring some people, but yeah, there's just there. Yeah, LinkedIn is the spot though. I would say like putting as much up there as I can.
Beautiful. Look, I really appreciate you, and I'm hoping we can catch you somewhere soon. We'll need to get you guys a bit more involved in the stuff we're doing with Strive across APAC as well. So they'll come at some stage. Thank you very much, sir. Folks listening on the YouTube, hit subscribe. Give us a thumbs up. If you're on the Spotify's or the iTunes, then as Will said, leave us a positive review. 5 stars, please. It does make a difference. It means we can keep on doing this kind of content. It does show other people that what you think we're doing is valuable. Will, take care of yourself, and we'll see you around soon.
Thanks so much for having me, Bart. It's good chatting with you.
Thank you. Sweet.